Picture a world where rulers were not mere mortals, but divine entities, their commands seen as sacred and unquestionable. In such a world, religion was not only a spiritual guide, it was the glue of society, the justification for wars, and the foundation of empires. From the towering pyramids of ancient Egypt to the gilded halls of Byzantium, and the blood-soaked altars of the Aztecs, religion built civilizations of incredible beauty, power, and influence. But this divine power was a double-edged sword. What happens when faith turns to fanaticism? When empires wield the sacred as a weapon of control? In this video, we'll explore the rise and fall of three of history's most iconic empires, Egypt, Byzantium, and the Aztecs, through the lens of religion. How did faith fuel their ascent to glory? And how did zealotry, corruption, or division lead to their downfall? And what lessons can we learn about the dual nature of religion's power to unite and destroy? Stay with us as we journey through time to uncover how the gods walked among men and shaped the fate of empires. As we begin this journey into the realms where gods walked among men, our first destination is the cradle of divine kingship, ancient Egypt. Nestled along the banks of the Nile River, ancient Egypt flourished for over 3 millennia, becoming one of the most enduring civilizations in human history. What set Egypt apart wasn't just its architectural wonders or its unparalleled cultural achievements, it was its profound belief that their rulers were divine beings. The concept of divine kingship shaped every facet of Egyptian life, from its politics and religion to its art and architecture. The pharaoh was not just a king, he was a god walking among mortals, the physical embodiment of divine order. But what did this mean for Egypt, a civilization that achieved astonishing heights under this system of governance? And what were the consequences when the balance between the divine and the earthly was disrupted? In the earliest days of Egyptian civilization, the pharaohs were seen as earthly manifestations of Horus, the falcon-headed god of the sky. Horus was the protector of order, the avenger of wrongs, and the upholder of Ma'at, the cosmic balance that governed the universe. To the people of Egypt, the pharaoh's role wasn't merely to rule, it was to ensure that Ma'at was maintained. This meant overseeing the annual flooding of the Nile, managing the distribution of resources, and serving as an intermediary between the gods and the people. As the Old Kingdom progressed, the pharaohs began to associate themselves with Ra, the sun god who traveled across the heavens by day and descended into the underworld by night. The pharaoh wasn't just a living god, he was also a critical figure in ensuring the eternal cycle of life and death. His connection to Ra reinforced his role as a guarantor of fertility and prosperity, linking the survival of the kingdom to his divine favor. This belief in divine kingship wasn't merely symbolic, it was an effective political tool that unified Egypt's sprawling territories. The pharaoh's godhood transcended regional differences, rallying the people around a common figure who embodied both political authority and divine will. When a pharaoh decreed that temples should be built, his subjects saw it not as an obligation, but as a sacred duty. Perhaps the most iconic symbols of Egypt's divine kingship are the pyramids, monumental tombs that continue to captivate the world. The Great Pyramid of Giza, built for Pharaoh Khufu around 2560 BCE, is a testament to the pharaoh's unparalleled authority. Standing over 480 feet tall, it remained the tallest man-made structure in the world for nearly 4,000 years. But why did the Egyptians dedicate such immense resources to building these tombs? The answer lies in their belief in the afterlife. The pharaoh's journey to the afterlife was not just a personal endeavor, it was a cosmic event. To ensure the continuation of Ma'at, the pharaoh had to ascend to the heavens and join the gods. The pyramid, meticulously aligned with the stars, served as a celestial ladder, guiding the king's soul to eternity. Building these monuments was an extraordinary feat of engineering, requiring tens of thousands of workers. Contrary to popular myths, many of these laborers were not slaves, but skilled artisans and farmers who worked during the Nile's inundation period. Their labor was seen as a form of religious devotion, a way to participate in the pharaoh's divine legacy. However, the construction of these colossal structures came at a cost. The Old Kingdom's obsession with pyramid building strained Egypt's economy, diverting resources from other critical areas. By the end of the 6th dynasty, the power of the central government waned, and the Old Kingdom collapsed into the First Intermediate Period, a time of political fragmentation and chaos. As Egypt entered the Middle Kingdom circa 2050 to 1650 BCE, the concept of divine kingship began to evolve. Pharaohs now portrayed themselves as shepherds of their people, emphasizing their role as providers and protectors rather than distant, untouchable deities. This shift reflected a more pragmatic approach to governance, acknowledging the need to address the growing challenges of managing a complex and diverse society. One of the most significant moments in this evolution came during the reign of Pharaoh Senusret III. Known as a warrior king, Senusret led military campaigns that secured Egypt's borders and ensured access to critical resources like Nubian gold. While he maintained the divine image of kingship, his inscriptions and monuments reveal a ruler deeply invested in the welfare of his people, bridging the gap between the divine and the mortal. But divine kingship was not without its pitfalls. The centralization of power in the hands of a god king meant that the stability of the entire kingdom depended on the ruler's competence. A weak or ineffective pharaoh could undermine the very foundation of Ma'at, plunging Egypt into chaos. One of the most dramatic examples of how religion could both build and destabilize an empire occurred during the reign of Akhenaten, 1353 to 1336 BCE. Born Amenhotep IV, this pharaoh initiated one of history's earliest monotheistic experiments, abandoning the traditional pantheon of gods in favor of worshipping Aten, the sun disk. Akhenaten's religious reforms were radical. He closed temples dedicated to other gods, stripped the powerful priesthood of Amun of their influence, and moved the capital to a new city, Akhetaten, modern-day Amarna. In his vision, Aten was the sole god, and Akhenaten was his prophet. While Akhenaten's reforms were revolutionary, they were also deeply disruptive. The closure of temples upended the economic and social systems that had sustained Egypt for centuries. Priests, who wielded considerable power, became adversaries of the new regime. The people, accustomed to worshiping a multitude of gods, found themselves alienated from the state's new religious ideology. After Akhenaten's death, his successors, including the famous Tutankhamun, quickly dismantled his reforms, restoring the traditional pantheon and erasing nearly all traces of his reign. This period of turmoil weakened Egypt's central authority, contributing to the eventual decline of the New Kingdom. Despite its remarkable longevity, Egypt's reliance on divine kingship ultimately became a double-edged sword. As external pressures mounted, including invasions by the Hyksos, Nubians, and Assyrians, the unity that had defined Egypt began to fracture. The rise of powerful priesthoods further diluted the pharaoh's authority, as temples amassed wealth and influence that rivaled the state itself. By the time Alexander the Great conquered Egypt in 332 BCE, the once mighty civilization had been reduced to a shadow of its former self. Yet, the legacy of divine kingship endured. Even under Ptolemaic and Roman rule, rulers adopted the image of the pharaoh as a god, recognizing the enduring power of this ancient tradition. The story of Egypt's divine kingship is one of triumph and tragedy, unity and division. It highlights the extraordinary potential of religion to inspire, unify, and elevate a civilization to greatness. At the same time, it serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of tying political power too closely to spiritual authority. Today, the pyramids, temples, and statues of ancient Egypt stand as enduring symbols of a civilization that saw its rulers not as mere mortals, but as living gods. These monuments remind us of the incredible achievements that faith and human ingenuity can produce, and the delicate balance required to sustain them. From the golden sands of Egypt, we now move to the crossroads of East and West, where the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, emerged as a bastion of faith and resilience. Now, let's take a look at the next civilization, Byzantium. As the Roman Empire crumbled under the weight of barbarian invasions and internal decay, one part of its legacy refused to fade. The Eastern Roman Empire, later known as Byzantium, emerged as a beacon of stability, culture, and faith in a turbulent world. At its heart was Constantinople, a city that stood as both the spiritual and physical shield of Christianity for over 1,000 years. But Byzantium was far more than a fortress of faith. It was a melting pot of Roman, Greek, and Christian traditions, a hub of art, philosophy, and commerce. Yet, its unwavering commitment to Christianity, while its greatest strength, was also a source of internal conflict and external aggression. Byzantium's story begins in 330 CE, when Emperor Constantine the Great inaugurated his new capital on the Bosporus Strait. Named Constantinople in his honor, the city was strategically positioned at the crossroads of Europe and Asia, controlling vital trade routes and serving as a bulwark against invasions from the east. Constantine's conversion to Christianity marked a seismic shift in the empire's identity. Unlike pagan Rome, Byzantium embraced Christianity not just as a religion, but as the cornerstone of its civilization. The city's skyline soon filled with magnificent churches, the most iconic of which was the Hagia Sophia, a masterpiece of architecture and a symbol of divine authority. Constantinople wasn't just a physical fortress, it was a theological one. As the Western Roman Empire disintegrated, Byzantium became the guardian of Christian orthodoxy, preserving the faith against heresies, schisms, and external threats. From its earliest days, Byzantium was deeply entangled in theological disputes. The empire saw itself as the defender of true Christianity, a role that often placed it at the center of intense religious controversies. The Council of Nicaea in 325 CE, convened by Constantine, sought to address the Arian controversy, a debate over the nature of Christ. While the council established the Nicene Creed, affirming Christ's divinity, it was far from the last word on the matter. For centuries, the Byzantine Empire grappled with questions about the Trinity, the nature of Christ, and the role of icons in worship. One of the most divisive controversies was the iconoclast movement of the 8th and 9th centuries. Iconoclasts, who opposed the veneration of religious images, clashed with iconophiles, who saw icons as vital to Christian worship. This debate wasn't just theological, it had profound political and cultural implications, dividing families, communities, and even emperors. The resolution of these disputes often came at a high cost. While Byzantium succeeded in defining Christian orthodoxy, the process alienated many of its subjects, particularly in regions like Egypt and Syria, where monophysitism, a belief in the single divine nature of Christ, remained strong. These divisions weakened the empire's cohesion, making it vulnerable to external threats. The 6th century marked a peak in Byzantium's history under the reign of Emperor Justinian I, 527 to 565 CE. Justinian was a ruler of extraordinary ambition, determined to restore the glory of the Roman Empire and assert Byzantium's role as the center of Christian civilization. One of his most enduring legacies was the construction of the Hagia Sophia, a breathtaking cathedral that symbolized the empire's divine mission. With its massive dome seeming to float on air, the Hagia Sophia was a testament to Byzantine ingenuity and faith. Justinian is said to have proclaimed, "Solomon, I have outdone you," referencing the grandeur of the biblical Temple of Solomon. Justinian also embarked on a series of military campaigns aimed at reclaiming lost Roman territories in North Africa, Italy, and Spain. Under the brilliant generalship of Belisarius, these campaigns achieved remarkable successes, temporarily reuniting parts of the Western Roman Empire with Byzantium. However, these ambitions came at a steep cost. Justinian's wars drained the empire's treasury, and his efforts to impose religious unity often exacerbated internal divisions. The devastating plague of Justinian, which swept through the empire in the 540s, further weakened Byzantium, killing millions and undermining its ability to sustain its conquests. Despite its challenges, Byzantium remained a bastion of Christianity, especially as new threats emerged from the rise of Islam in the 7th century. The Islamic caliphates expanded rapidly, conquering vast swathes of the Byzantine Empire's territory, including Egypt, Syria, and North Africa. Yet, Constantinople stood firm. The city's formidable walls, combined with the use of Greek fire, a mysterious incendiary weapon, repelled numerous sieges, including a massive assault by the Umayyad Caliphate in year 717 to 718. Byzantium's ability to withstand these attacks not only preserved Christianity in the East, but also bought time for Europe to prepare for the challenges posed by Islamic expansion. The Byzantine Empire's role as Christianity's shield was not limited to military defense. The empire served as a cultural and theological bridge between East and West. Byzantine missionaries, such as Saint Cyril and Methodius, brought Christianity to the Slavic peoples, laying the foundations for Orthodox Christianity in Russia and Eastern Europe. The Cyrillic alphabet developed by these missionaries remains a cornerstone of Slavic culture. Byzantium's position as the heart of Christianity was not without complications. Over centuries, tensions grew between the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church. These tensions were rooted in theological differences, such as the Filioque controversy, whether the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father alone or from the Father and the Son, as well as disputes over papal authority. In 1054 CE, these tensions culminated in the Great Schism, a formal split between the Eastern Orthodox and Roman Catholic churches. This division weakened Christendom, making it more vulnerable to external threats and diminishing Byzantium's influence in the West. The Crusades, initially launched to reclaim the Holy Land from Muslim control, had a profound impact on Byzantium. While the empire hoped for military assistance from the West, the Crusaders often had their own agendas. The Fourth Crusade, 1202 to 1204 CE, was particularly catastrophic. Instead of marching on Jerusalem, the Crusaders sacked Constantinople, looting its treasures and leaving the city in ruins. The sacking of Constantinople marked a turning point in Byzantium's history. Though the empire was eventually restored, it never fully recovered its former strength. The betrayal by fellow Christians underscored the fragility of alliances and the dangers of intertwining religious zeal with political ambition. By the 15th century, Byzantium was a shadow of its former self, reduced to a small territory surrounding Constantinople. The rise of the Ottoman Empire posed an existential threat. In 1453 CE, Sultan Mehmed II launched a massive assault on the city, using advanced siege weapons, including massive cannons that breached Constantinople's walls. The fall of Constantinople marked the end of the Byzantine Empire and the final chapter in its role as the shield of Christianity. Yet, its legacy endured. Byzantine scholars, fleeing the city, brought classical texts and knowledge to the West, fueling the Renaissance. The Eastern Orthodox Church, while now centered in Moscow and other Slavic lands, continued to carry the spiritual torch of Byzantium. Byzantium's story is one of resilience, faith, and cultural brilliance. As the shield of Christianity, it stood against countless threats, preserving a rich tradition that shaped the course of Western civilization. Yet, its history also serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of internal division and the limits of even the most formidable defenses. The Hagia Sophia, now a mosque, stands as a symbol of Byzantium's enduring influence, a reminder of a time when faith and power converged to create a civilization that, though fallen, continues to inspire. Leaving the ancient Mediterranean behind, our journey takes us across the Atlantic. In the heart of Mesoamerica, a civilization emerged that rivaled the greatest empires of the ancient world. The Aztec Empire was a marvel of urban planning, agricultural innovation, and cultural achievement. Its capital, Tenochtitlan, was one of the largest cities in the world, an island metropolis that seemed to float on the shimmering waters of Lake Texcoco. But beneath its grandeur lay a belief system that demanded an extraordinary price: blood. The Aztecs' religion, deeply intertwined with their politics and society, defined their existence. It was a faith that saw the universe as a delicate balance, one maintained only through constant offerings to the gods. Human sacrifice for the Aztecs was not an act of cruelty, but a sacred duty, a means of ensuring the survival of their world. This devotion to divine appeasement fueled their empire, shaped their culture, and ultimately contributed to their downfall. So let's take a look at the rise of the Aztecs. They began as nomads and eventually established an empire. The Aztecs, or Mexica as they called themselves, were not always empire builders. In the early 14th century, they were a wandering tribe, often dismissed by more established civilizations like the Toltecs and the Maya. According to their origin myth, they were guided by their patron god, Huitzilopochtli, to a promised land where they would find an eagle perched on a cactus, devouring a snake. This vision, depicted on Mexico's modern flag, led them to the swampy islands of Lake Texcoco, where they founded Tenochtitlan in 1325. From these humble beginnings, the Aztecs quickly rose to prominence. They formed alliances with neighboring city-states, notably Texcoco and Tlacopan, creating the Triple Alliance that became the foundation of their empire. Through a combination of military conquest, diplomacy, and tribute, the Aztecs extended their influence across much of central Mexico, ruling over millions of people by the early 16th century. At the heart of Aztec society was their religion, a complex system that blended mythology, astronomy, and ritual. The Aztecs believed that their world had been created and destroyed multiple times, and that they lived in the fifth and final era, precariously sustained by the gods. To ensure the sun would rise each day, they needed to feed the gods with blood. This belief wasn't confined to spiritual practices. It permeated every aspect of Aztec life. Warfare, for example, was as much a religious duty as a means of expansion. The Aztecs waged flower wars, ritualistic battles designed not to conquer territory, but to capture prisoners for sacrifice. These wars were fought with wooden weapons, meant to maim rather than kill, ensuring a steady supply of captives for the altars. Tributary states under Aztec control were also required to provide human tribute, often in the form of prisoners or their own citizens. This system created a cycle of fear and resentment among the subjugated peoples, many of whom harbored deep animosity toward their Aztec overlords. The most vivid and controversial aspect of Aztec religion was human sacrifice, a practice that both awed and horrified the Spanish conquistadors who later encountered it. These sacrifices were grand public events, held atop towering pyramids like the Templo Mayor in Tenochtitlan. The rituals were carefully choreographed, accompanied by music, dance, and the recitation of sacred hymns. The sacrificial victim, often a captive warrior, was led up the steep temple steps to the altar, where a priest wielding an obsidian blade would cut open their chest and remove their still-beating heart. The heart, considered the ultimate gift to the gods, was held aloft as an offering, while the body was cast down the pyramid steps. In some cases, the victims' body parts were distributed and consumed in ceremonial feasts, symbolizing the absorption of divine power. The scale of these sacrifices could be staggering. During the consecration of the Great Pyramid of Tenochtitlan in 1487, it is said that thousands of captives were sacrificed over 4 days. While these numbers may be exaggerated, they underscore the central role that sacrifice played in Aztec religion and society. Despite their fearsome reputation, the Aztecs were far more than warriors and sacrificers. They were builders, poets, and astronomers. Tenochtitlan itself was a marvel of urban planning, with wide canals, floating gardens called chinampas, and aqueducts that supplied fresh water to the city's inhabitants. Aztec art and literature reflected their deep connection to their gods and the natural world. They created intricate stone carvings, vibrant murals, and codices filled with pictographic writing that chronicled their history, mythology, and rituals. Their poetry, often sung or recited during ceremonies, celebrated themes of life, death, and the cyclical nature of existence. Their knowledge of astronomy and agriculture was equally impressive. The Aztec calendar, based on a 365-day solar year and a 260-day ritual cycle, was used to guide both farming and religious observances. Festivals marking the changing of seasons or honoring specific gods were meticulously timed, reinforcing the connection between their earthly and divine worlds. While the Aztec religion inspired great cultural achievements, it also imposed a heavy burden on their society. The constant demand for captives strained their relationships with neighboring states, many of whom chafed under the weight of tribute and the threat of sacrifice. This resentment created a fragile network of alliances, one that would unravel when confronted by an external threat. For the average Aztec citizen, life was a delicate balance of devotion and fear. Commoners participated in religious festivals and rituals, offering smaller sacrifices such as food, incense, or their own blood through self-inflicted wounds. Yet they also lived under the shadow of the gods' insatiable demands, knowing that even they could be called upon to ascend the temple steps. The arrival of Hernán Cortés and his Spanish conquistadors in 1519 marked the beginning of the end for the Aztec Empire. Cortés, initially welcomed into Tenochtitlan by Emperor Moctezuma II, quickly exploited the divisions within the empire. He forged alliances with disgruntled tributary states, such as the Tlaxcalans, who eagerly joined him in his campaign against their Aztec overlords. The Spanish brought with them not only superior weaponry, but also devastating diseases like smallpox, which decimated the native population. The combination of military might, disease, and internal dissent proved too much for the Aztecs to withstand. In 1521, after a brutal siege, Tenochtitlan fell, and the empire was dismantled. Though their empire was destroyed, the legacy of the Aztecs endures. Their achievements in art, architecture, and science continue to inspire awe, while their rituals and beliefs offer a window into a worldview profoundly different from our own. The ruins of Tenochtitlan, buried beneath modern-day Mexico City, serve as a reminder of their greatness and the costs of their devotion. The Aztec story is one of contrasts, a society that reached extraordinary heights of cultural and architectural achievement, yet one that demanded extraordinary sacrifices to sustain itself. Their faith, fueled by blood, was both their strength and their undoing, a testament to the complex interplay of power, belief, and human ambition. So, what can we learn from these empires where gods walked among men? Religion, with its unmatched power to inspire, unite, and elevate, has also been a force of division, destruction, and exploitation. The same faith that built monumental pyramids, magnificent cathedrals, and awe-inspiring temples also led to bloody sacrifices, schisms, and wars. The stories of Egypt, Byzantium, and the Aztecs remind us that religion is a double-edged sword. Its ability to create meaning and community is unparalleled, but when wielded as a tool of control or conquest, it can tear empires apart. These lessons are not confined to history. They echo in the modern world, where the balance between faith and power remains as delicate as ever. As we end this video, let us reflect on the dual nature of religion, its power to inspire greatness, and its potential to ignite chaos. The gods may no longer walk among us, but their influence lingers, shaping the world we live in today.